So today we're going to dive into a book that, honestly, has become a total Bible for entrepreneurs everywhere. The Lean Startup by Eric Ries. It's this pretty radical idea that just flips the old way of doing business on its head. It argues that the real key to success isn't some flawless business plan, but actually a relentless, almost obsessive focus on speed and, most importantly, on learning. The entire Lean Startup philosophy was basically forged in the fire of a massive failure. Eric Ries talks about this really painful memory of his first company. They had it all. Brilliant engineers, amazing tech, everything you think you need to succeed. And yet, they failed, spectacularly. So why? He realized they were, in his own words, doomed from day one. It wasn't because their product was bad. It was because they had no idea what process to use to actually build a business around that product. And this right here gets to the absolute heart of the single biggest killer of new businesses. It's not a lack of money, it's not bad tech, it's the tragic, colossal waste of building something perfectly that nobody actually wants. And according to Ries, this happens because founders almost always fall into one of two classic traps. Okay, so on one side, you've got analysis paralysis. You know these teams. They spend years perfecting their business plan. They're drowning in spreadsheets, endlessly strategizing on whiteboards. Then on the other side, you've got the just do it school of thought. These are the teams that just dive right in, assume they know exactly what customers need, and lock themselves away for months to build it. But here's the crazy part. Both paths, as different as they seem, usually lead to the exact same dead end. So if both of those paths are basically roads to ruin, what's the alternative? Well, the Lean Startup offers a third way. It says we need to stop treating a new business like we're just executing some flawless master plan and start treating it like a science experiment. And the core of this whole method is this deceptively simple little feedback loop. Build, measure, learn. And you have to understand, this is a huge mental shift. The goal is no longer just to build something. The goal is to learn what you're supposed to be building in the first place. That 100-page business plan? Gone. It gets replaced by a handful of things you can actually test. You're not just an executive anymore. You're more like a detective, out there searching for clues that lead to a real sustainable business. And this is how you do it. The loop just goes around and around. First, you build the most basic version of your idea. Think of it as an experiment to test your biggest assumptions. Second, you measure how real customers actually respond, using cold, hard data. And third, you learn from that data to make a huge decision. Do we keep going on this path, persevere, or is it time to change course, to pivot? And then you just do it all over again, getting a little bit smarter with every single cycle. All right, let's zoom in on that very first step, build. This is where we run into probably the most famous and, let's be honest, the most misunderstood concept from the entire book, the minimum viable product, or MVP. Now listen up, because this is what almost everyone gets wrong. An MVP is not a smaller, buggier version 1.0 of your final product. Nope. Its one and only purpose is to start that learning process as fast as humanly possible. It is the absolute bare minimum thing you can create to test your biggest, scariest assumption. And as you're about to see, sometimes it's not even a product at all. Okay, take Dropbox. Just think for a second about the technical nightmare of actually building a seamless file syncing service that works flawlessly on every single device. It is a massive, massive engineering challenge. So how in the world could they possibly know if people actually wanted this before they sank years and millions of dollars into building it? Well, their solution was pure genius. Their MVP wasn't a single line of code. It was a video, just a simple 3-minute screencast showing what Dropbox would do. They shared it with a bunch of early tech adopters, and the reaction was just explosive. Their sign-up list went from 5,000 people to 75,000 people overnight. They had just proven that people were desperate for their solution, all without having a finished product. Or here's another great one, Zappos. They wanted to test what at the time seemed like a totally crazy idea. Would people ever buy shoes online without being able to try them on first? The old school approach would be to build a massive website, stock a giant warehouse full of shoes, basically an incredibly expensive gamble. So their MVP was completely manual. The founder, Nick Swinmurn, just built a super basic website, walked into local shoe stores, took pictures of their shoes and posted them online. When an order came in, he would literally walk back to the store, buy the shoes at full price, and mail them to the customer himself. He tested his entire business model with zero inventory. Brilliant. How about one more? Groupon. Before it became this huge company we all know, the founders had to test a really simple idea. Would people actually be willing to buy coupons for local businesses online? Their MVP was just a simple WordPress blog. That's it. They posted one deal for a pizza place in their own office building. When people bought it, the team would manually create a PDF coupon and email it to them. It was, as the founder himself said, totally ghetto. But it was enough. It was enough to learn that people absolutely loved the idea. That's an MVP. Okay, so once you've got that MVP out there in the real world, you hit the next phases of the loop: measure and learn. This is where you actually steer the ship. And just like a pilot, you need the right instruments on your dashboard to even know if you're flying in the right direction. First things first, you have to ignore what Ries calls vanity metrics. These are those feel-good numbers, total downloads, total paid views. They always go up and to the right, so they look great in a presentation, but they tell you absolutely nothing about the actual health of your business. You have to focus on actionable metrics, data that shows you clear cause and effect. Did this new feature we shipped actually improve our conversion rate? Are the customers who use it sticking around longer? That's the kind of data that leads to real learning. And this forces a complete rethink of what success even looks like. Success is no longer just shipping a feature on time and on budget. As Ries puts it, success is learning how to solve the customer's problem. The end result isn't a bunch of code, it's what he calls validated learning, proving with hard evidence that you are actually on the right track. All this learning forces you to face the single hardest question in any startup. Do we pivot or do we persevere? And a pivot is not a failure. It's not just tweaking a button color. As you see here, it's a structured, strategic change in direction. It's the courageous act of standing up and saying, you know what, our core idea was wrong, but we learned something incredibly valuable, and now we're going to test a new one based on what we learned. Now, you might be sitting there thinking, okay, this is all great for a couple of scrappy founders in a garage. But maybe the most powerful idea in the whole book is that these principles are totally universal. They can be used by any team in any size company to build a sustainable engine for innovation. Ries calls these internal innovators entrepreneurs. They're the ones applying these exact same cycles of building, measuring, and learning to create new products and services inside massive, established companies, helping them stay agile and competitive in a crazy, fast-changing world. And the proof is really everywhere. You've got giant companies like Intuit using it to develop new tax software. The US government has used it to launch entire new agencies way more effectively. It's being used by social enterprises, bringing washing machines to villages in India. And its roots can even be traced back to Toyota's legendary production system. It's truly a universal framework for innovating when you don't know what the future holds. But when you strip away all the buzzwords and the loops and the pivots, the mission of the lean startup is actually profoundly human. It's about respect. Respect for your customers' time by not building things they don't want. Respect for your team's talent by not wasting it on ideas that lead nowhere. And as the book wraps up, it's really all about one simple, powerful goal: to stop wasting people's time. So this leaves us with a challenge for you. Look at your own work, your own project, your own big idea. What is the single biggest leap of faith assumption that everything else is built on? And more importantly, what is the absolute smallest, fastest, maybe even ghettoest experiment you could run, maybe even tomorrow, to find out if you're right? Answering that question, that's putting the lean startup into action.